Okay, welcome back to part 2 of the repair of the Supro. Last episode, we were just assessing the problems. Since then, I've done very little other than thinking. Remove the strings, they come off of the bridge. You just loosen them and then they pop back. I didn't cut them like some repairmen do because they can actually be used for other things, for cleats, for using the little clamp to put cleats in. So I'm saving those. I actually ran out of them last job I did. The other thing is putting a little pad under this. I want to put some tape on here, but the tape is across the basement. Okay, and now we flip it over, making sure the rag doesn't come out. Okay, that's safe. So what I'm going to do is attempt to use moist heat to loosen the binding. And I'm going to start here at the end, because you got to start somewhere. I don't want to start up here near the neck, because if I screw up there, it could be a bigger problem. I'm going to start here where the paint is already pretty bad. I'm going to need to smooth that out anyway. There's a little spot of epoxy where the old binding didn't work. Okay, so the thinking here is I've got an iron, I've got hot water here with chisels sitting in it. The hot water is about 150 degrees Fahrenheit, maybe a little less than that. And I'm going to moisten this towel, put it here, and I've got the iron on the lowest setting. So the idea is to get heat enough to soften this glue, whatever it is, but not melt the binding. And so this is an experiment. Even if I knew what I was doing, it'd still be an experiment because I don't know what glue this was, what glue is on here. I really don't think it's hide glue. It doesn't look like hide glue. And so here goes the wet towel. I should keep another bit of dry towel here to constantly wipe off the moisture. And here we go. Still not hot on the binding, so I'm going to give it a little more time. I'm going to do it a little more on the side because heat rises. It's getting hot. I want to really get the heat right at the end, right at the very middle, because that's where we want it to start. I've ordered some new binding, so I'm not really confident that I'll be able to save it. Okay, here goes a hot chisel right on the line between the binding and the backwood. And did I see a little movement? Yes. We're getting some separation. That's great. One thing that's becoming clear is that the binding is actually two strips of binding. If you look closely, they're parallel around the whole curve. So I guess whoever did this repair bought a binding that looks like it's about 2 millimeters, and then doubled it up and then trimmed off the excess. Oh, here it comes. Look at that. That is beautiful. It's coming off. It's losing its curvature, but that's okay, because curvature can be achieved again, or I'll be putting new binding. Are we getting any cloud in the finish? I don't see any. You may be expecting to hear the sound of cracking, which is when this job is done cold, you hear the sound of the hide glue cracking. It sounds like the wood splitting, but this is silent. So whatever glue was used, between the moisture of this damp towel, just a wet towel, and the lowest possible setting, this is 1 acrylic and acetate. So whatever that is, what I'm using here, by the way, for a chisel is maybe a 1/4 inch wide. And I've got another one that's more like 3/8 of an inch wide here in the hot water. Actually, the hot water has loosened up some old glue that was on this chisel, so better technique would have been a clean chisel, but can't always do things perfectly. What I'm seeing here, maybe I'll do a little close-up, is there's residue of glue in this joint. So that's what you want, right? You want the glue to stay behind. I mean, ideally the glue comes off too. That saves you the work, but ideally the glue that is in between the wood and the binding stays there, and that means the wood is staying in place, the finish on the wood is staying in place, and your binding is not being destroyed. I really wasn't confident that I'd be able to use this binding again, but now it's looking possible. So that's a good thing. And I'm rotating my chisels here so that I've got a warm one. By the way, this binding is not shaped like an I. I mean the letter I in the cross section. It is kind of like an L shape, where the fatter part is flush with the surface of the back. So I'm assuming that means that that's the joint I'm going to be left with here. For future, to be determined in the future, is whether I'm going to route this channel all over again, and or try to reuse this binding and fit the same shape. I don't really think that's going to be possible, because it's pretty much impossible to get the back off. This is, I can peel this off with my fingers. I don't even need a chisel at this point. And I think once it gets hot, that glue is softened up just enough to let go, and because the binding is loose enough, I can get my fingers on it. Look at that, peeling right off. Suppose I should try to bend this back, but it doesn't want to bend back. So maybe what I'm going to end up doing is using one strip of the binding I ordered and then using the original binding on the outside, because then I'll get the color match. To be seen, to be determined with experimentation. Still not getting any cloudiness in my finish. Oh wow, that's peeling off nicely. Okay, I think we got the idea. I'm going to pause.